Ravens fans, things just changed drastically. DeCosta, the Ravens GM, made a revelation that could decide Mark Andrews' future in Baltimore. Will our star tight end remain with the team, or are we about to lose one of the most valuable pieces of our roster? What DeCosta said could directly impact the direction of the franchise next season, and it has major implications for the roster. If Andrews' future is uncertain, the effects could be significant, and the immediate future of the Ravens is at risk. Now, the question is, what will happen with Mark Andrews? What does this statement mean for the team and for Baltimore's plan? If you're a Ravens fan, you need to know all the details because the future of the franchise could be at stake. Stay with us until the end, as we'll tell you everything you need to know about this decision and how it could change the Ravens' direction. Go Ravens! You know when a player is so important to a team that everyone assumes they'll retire there, become a club legend, and have their name immortalized? Well, that's exactly the case with Mark Andrews for the Ravens. For years, he has been one of the cornerstones of the offense. The guy Lamar Jackson turned to in tough moments and who always delivered when the team needed him. But when DeCosta spoke about him at the NFL Combine, the tone of the conversation wasn't exactly about planning for the future with Andrews. On the contrary, it sounded more like a farewell speech than anything else. DeCosta showered Andrews with praise, calling him one of the franchise's greats, and even mentioning that one day he would be in the Ravens' ring of honor. That's a huge recognition, but it could also be a subtle way of preparing the fans for what's to come. Normally, when a player is part of the team's future plan, the conversation focuses on what he can still do and how important he will be for the next season. But when the focus shifts to legacy, the past, and future honors, something feels off. It's hard to ignore the fact that, even without directly saying it, the GM gave clear signs that a change might be coming. And here comes a question nobody wants to face. Have we seen Mark Andrews play his last game for the Ravens? The idea of losing such a symbolic player is tough to swallow, especially when he's still playing at a high level, scoring touchdowns, and being a key part of the offense. But the NFL is a business, and tough decisions are made all the time. If Baltimore does decide to move on without Andrews, it will be one of those moves that shakes up the fan. But the team believes is necessary for the future. And if DeCosta really wanted to shut down any rumors, he would have been direct and said that Andrews is staying. But that's not what happened. On the contrary, the lack of confirmation might have been the clearest clue that something is about to happen. If Mark Andrews were still guaranteed to be part of the Ravens' plans for 2025, DeCosta would have said it outright. But instead of reassuring the fans and confirming that the tight end will stay with the team, he stuck to praise and vague statement. He mentioned that Andrews will have an amazing season, but didn't specify if that will happen in Baltimore. He also mentioned that the team will work on building the roster in the coming weeks, which is a subtle way of saying that changes are on the way. When a GM avoids confirming something as simple as a player's stay, silence speaks louder than any word. This lack of a direct statement only fuels speculation about Andrews' future. He's one of the most talented players at his position and still has a lot to give, but the Ravens may be looking ahead. The team already has two younger tight ends on the roster, Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kolar, and keeping a veteran like Andrews, who has a hefty contract, might not be a priority. That doesn't mean he will be traded or released immediately, but it makes it clear that the team is at least considering the possibility. And of course, all of this puts the fans in a tough spot. On one hand, no one wants to see such an important player leave, especially someone who has built such a strong connection with Lamar Jackson. On the other hand, the NFL is a business, and teams need to make tough decisions to remain competitive. We've seen Baltimore part with key players in the past to keep the team on the right track. The question now is, will they do the same with Andrews? And if the answer is yes, the impact won't just be emotional. What does this mean for the Ravens offense? Who will take over that vital role in Lamar's connection? Since entering the NFL, Mark Andrews hasn't just been another tight end. He's become one of the Ravens' most crucial offensive weapons, someone who can make the difference in pivotal moments. His chemistry with Lamar Jackson has been built over the years, becoming one of the deadliest connections in the league. In 2024, even dealing with injuries, he still finished the season as a team leader in touchdown reception, showing that his talent remains intact. It's not just about the stat. Andrews is the type of player who changes game. He knows how to find space in the defense, gets open like few others, and when he's healthy, he's a nightmare for opposing team. Losing him wouldn't just mean losing a great player, but it would also affect the dynamic of the offense. Lamar Jackson has always trusted Andrews in the toughest moment. If the Ravens decide to go in a different direction, they'll need to find a new go-to guy for the quarterback. DeCosta knows this. He himself called Andrews a blessing to the team, acknowledging all the player has done for the team and the impact he's had both on and off the field. But football is ruthless, no matter how important a player has been in the past. What really matters are the decisions that shape the future. That's why Despite all the praise, DeCosta's words weren't enough to guarantee Andrews' stay. And that leads us to an even more intriguing point. Even if he leaves, no one doubts that he can still play at a high level. So, where will he shine next season? Well, we're past the halfway point of our video, but before we continue, I notice you haven't hit the like button yet. It's really important for YouTube to keep recommending my content to you. So go ahead and drop a like. It's free. Thanks. Now, let's keep going. Eric DeCosta carefully chose his words, but one sentence stood out. He assured that Mark Andrews will have an amazing season. What's curious is that he didn't specify whether this season will be with the Ravens. If the plan was to keep him, there would be no need for ambiguity. The message would be direct and reassuring to the fan. But by leaving the statement open-ended, he almost confirmed that there's a real chance Andrews might not be in Baltimore when September arrives. And if that happens, one of the franchise's greatest tight ends could be about to wear another jersey for the first time in his career. At 30 years old, Andrews still has a lot to give. He remains one of the best tight ends in the NFL, and when healthy, he's a lethal target in the passing game. Players in a position usually maintain a high level of play until they're 32 or 33 years old, so there are no signs of him declining. If the Ravens do decide to move in a different direction, there will be no shortage of teams interested. Teams like the Chargers, Dolphins, or even the Chiefs, who always value dynamic tight end, could get in the mix for a player like him. But are the Ravens prepared for this change? Isaiah likely showed potential, especially toward the end of last season, and might be ready to take on a larger role in the offense. He's younger, has a cheaper contract, and has shown he can be a reliable piece for Lamar Jackson. Charlie Kolar, while he hasn't made the same impact yet, could still develop within the system. If Baltimore believes this transition can happen without compromising offensive performance, trading or releasing Andrews could make sense financially and tactically. But if this decision is really made, a cycle comes to an end. And when a player of this caliber says goodbye, what remains forever is his legacy, regardless of what happens in the coming months. One thing is already guaranteed. Mark Andrews will be remembered as one of the greatest players in Ravens history. He wasn't just a reliable tight end. He was one of the cornerstones of the team's offense, a reference for Lamar Jackson, and one of the most productive players at his position in the NFL. Since entering the league, he stood out with dominant performances that have helped keep Baltimore competitive year after year. His numbers are impressive, but his impact goes far beyond the stat. Being the greatest touchdown receiver in franchise history is no small feat. It means that on a team that has had big names on offense, Andrews was a guy who most often put the ball in the end zone. He did so with technique, intelligence, and an almost telepathic understanding of what Lamar Jackson needed on the field. The chemistry between the two was one of Baltimore's biggest offensive weapons in recent years. If he does leave, that connection will be tough to replace, not only from a technical standpoint, but also emotionally for the fans and for the quarterback himself. If Andrews' last image with the Ravens is the playoff loss, with a fumble and a dropped two-point conversion, it will be a bitter goodbye, but that won't be the main memory of his time in Baltimore. Fans will remember the clutch touchdown, the insane receptions in traffic, and the trust he instilled every time the ball went his way. Sooner or later, his name will be in the team's ring of honor, and when that happens, the fans will applaud him standing, no matter what the future holds. Now, we just have to wait and see if this future will still be with the Ravens, or the franchise is about to say goodbye to one of the greatest tight ends to ever wear the jersey. So, Ravens fan, what do you think of Eric DeCosta's revelation? Will we see Mark Andrews wearing the Baltimore jersey for another season? Or is this the end of an era? The impact of this decision goes beyond just a trade or contract renewal. It could completely shift the team's balance for the next season. The question is, are the Ravens ready to move forward without Andrews? Or does he still have a lot to contribute to the team's future? Leave your comment. We want to know your thoughts on this situation. And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more updates on everything happening with the Ravens. We'll see you in the next video. Go Ravens!